Our Mayor is ill today, and I'm sure that you all, along with me, wish him a speedy recovery. Please be seated. Can I remind members to ensure that all their mobile phones are either switched off or are on silent? Also, can I ask you today, when you're speaking, to please use the microphones, as they're now plugged into the live stream. So please don't shuffle your papers over the microphones or it will be picked up. Thank you. The first item on the agenda is to receive apologies for absence. In advance of the meeting, apologies have been received from councillors Byford, Collins, Garbett, Epworth, Law, Wallace and Williamson. Is there any more? Thank you. Councillor Tennant.
Madam Mayor, I'll have to leave the meeting at 4 p.m. It's Featherstone light switch on.
Thank you, Councillor Tennant. Councillors Gert. Councillor Ferguson.
I'll be leaving early till 3:30, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors Gert, Keith, Faith Eptinstall, Ferguson, Ayoub, Hayes, Melanie Jones, Councillor Tennant, Vickers and Laura Jones have informed us that they have to leave the meeting early. You're not going now, Councillor Vickers? Yeah, thank you. Are there any further who will be leaving early? No, thank you. Agenda item 2 is members' declaration of interest. Will members declaring an interest please identify themselves and their interests clearly and complete the usual yellow form before the end of the meeting? Firstly, are there any disclosable pecuniary interests to be declared? Are there any other interests to be declared? Thank you. Agenda item 3 is to receive and confirm the minutes of the October Council meeting. Are these meetings moved? Are these minutes seconded? All in favour? That is carried. Agenda item 4. In the absence of the Mayor, I know that he wanted to mention some of the important events that had occurred across the district. These included acts of remembrance, paying tribute to our fallen countrymen and women, reflecting on the great sacrifice that so many citizens in our district have made to protect the freedom and democracy that we all enjoy. It is heartwarming to hear that our Veterans Hub in Purston Park has been awarded the King's Award for Voluntary Service. Other events include the annual Miners' Memorial Service at Selby Abbey and the annual Memorial Service at Leeds Minster. Reflecting back on the past few weeks, there has also been a strong celebratory theme running through many of the engagements, such as the Lord Lieutenant's Awards evening, the Staff Long Service Awards at His Majesty's Prison in Wakefield, the Wakefield Bid Awards, the Wakefield College graduates and care leavers, and our looked after children at their Care for Us exhibition, where our children exhibited some terrific pieces of artwork which sought to challenge the foster care stereotype and ensure that we listen to our children's voices. Colleagues, as we start to turn on the district's festive lights and look ahead to the holiday season, I would like to remind you of the invitation to the Mayor's Carol service, which will be taking place on the evening of Wednesday 11th of December at Wakefield Cathedral. Thank you. Agenda item 5 is the Leader's Report. Once the Leader has presented her report, she will receive comments or answers of any questions from members on the matters raised in her report. Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know many of us will have been very upset, deeply upset about the loss of John Prescott. A great loss to the Labour Party. John was a great friend to Wakefield and campaigned many times in Wakefield. And I can remember when he was standing for leader of the Labour Party, he came to Wakefield. And the MP at the time, David Hinchcliffe, asked me if he could come for his tea. And I had a bit of a fit about that because my culinary skills are not brilliant. So I gave them beans on toast. And he was lovely because he said, that was great. And it was a bit of embarrassment, really, but it was something that I treasured, really. And he campaigned such a lot for us. And I think you'll have heard perhaps on the TV lately when he's talked about he'll be remembered for the punch. Well, we all loved that punch, didn't we? But he'll be remembered for so much more. What a real hero he was. And he understood the North, he understood Yorkshire, and he understood us. And they really broke the mould when they made him. We won't see his like again, I'm sure, because he was very special. And I'd like us to pay tribute to his family and let them know how we feel about him. Because, as I say, he was a very special man, and many of us will know, Olivia and Betty, who we knew at that time, will know how much he did come to Wakefield with David Hinchcliffe at the time. So I just want to pay tribute to John. The autumn budget has now come forward, as we know. It's the first step from the new government. It's not been easy, and it's caused a lot of controversy. But I can't think that the right-wing press have been very helpful. I think they're quite loving it. And nobody's going to pretend it's easy. And we're not pretending the financial environment for the council is working in ourselves is easy. But the autumn budget has provided some additional support for the council for adult and social care and homeless services. But 14 years of underfunding can't be underdone in one budget. I would have liked to have seen a 3-year settlement. I know I've been banging on about this all year, really. We live in hope. They might give us an extra Christmas present at Christmas, but I know they will be looking for the 3-year funding as soon as they can, but it would have been helpful for us if we could have done it quicker. The other thing that the government have announced is getting Britain working. And I understand that West Yorkshire will be at the forefront of this effort and will be part of the work to form new work and health trailblazers to unlock the barriers for people facing getting back to work. And I think as a council, we should play a full part in that. The other announcement, which will be coming out tomorrow, is Louise Haigh, Secretary of State for Transport, is launching her transport policy. And she will be having meetings with myself and Matthew about how we can get involved in Yorkshire, and obviously with the Mayor, Tracy Braben, across West Yorkshire. The buses has been an issue, and I know it's on the agenda today, but the motion put forward has actually been quite superseded because of the Mayor's announcement of the £2 fare, which will stay now until March, and then capped at £2.50 for the rest of the time. So we are doing what we can, and the Mayor is doing what we can. The other thing, as you know, I did criticise Arriva 2 months ago about being the worst bus company in the country, and the services that we're losing are not brilliant. So what we have found out that the Combined Authority are talking to other users to see if they can bring some of their services and their facilities into Wakefield. So that will happen, and I think Matthew probably tell us a bit more about that. The other good thing that's happened this last week was the opening of the Gradient Mill at Tileyard, bringing in 400 to 500 jobs, which is fantastic for the district, and a lot more to come, which we will be talking about. I know Michael will be talking about that at a future date, as soon as we know a bit more about that. The great news, I think, was the mine workers' pension. They've waited a long time for this, and to get this going within a few weeks of a new government is something that we could all be proud of. What I would like to see, though, before it's too late, is a public inquiry into Orgreave. I think it's so important that we do that. We've campaigned about that in this chamber. We've had the Mine Workers Union here, and I think that's something that we should all be pushing for, working with our MPs. The other thing that was on the news this morning was obviously a ceasefire with Israel and Hezbollah. But where does that leave Palestine and Gaza? And they're still suffering daily. And whilst we talk about Christmas light switch-ons and how wonderful they all were and how we're going to have a happy Christmas, what about those people who are suffering and going ignored, really? And of course, there's the situation in Ukraine and where our front bench have been banned from Russia. I can't think they'll be all that bothered about that. I think that's the least of their worries, to be told that they can't enter Russia. So there's a lot going on across the district, which cabinet members will mention. As I've mentioned, the Light Up Christmas was amazing. And the light up in Wakefield with the County Hall, and the fact that we made the double page of The Guardian seemed to excite all the council officers. So I think that was really good. But I just think with the troubling times and everything going on, it is a very difficult time, but I do wish everybody a happy Christmas. It's a short report today because I've been quite busy in Featherstone. There's an event going on in Featherstone, which I think we all know about. So I'll leave it there.
Are there any comments or questions on Councillor Jeffrey's report? Councillor Vickers?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. Just a brief comment, but if you members will bear with me just a second, I just want to refresh the memory banks about the Council Code of Conduct. I will get to my point, Madam Mayor, before the time allowed. I'm just going to quote from the Code of Conduct. The public have high expectations of us and entrust us to represent our local areas, taking decisions fairly, openly and transparently. We have both an individual and collective responsibility to meet these expectations by maintaining high standards and demonstrating good conduct and, which is what I'm doing now, challenging behaviour which falls below expectations. They may have an adverse effect. What I want to remind Council about is this. This dropped through our letterboxes the week Councillor Graham Isherwood passed away, before his funeral. It might as well say Isherwood's betrayal. That's what that's worth. The rest of them, 5 since Councillor Isherwood's funeral. But I want to add something else. This first one dropped through their letterbox the day that Matt arrived from New York to support his mother through her grieving. This one arrived the same day as James arrived from Australia, who came to support his mother through the funeral. And on each one of these, except 2, there's the smiling viper on each photograph. And I say viper because this kind of behaviour is as low as a snake's belly and just as venomous. And what I'd like to do, I hope that the monitoring officer is taking note of these sort of things, because that does not uphold the code of conduct. And I'm speaking to them over there, and they know who they are. But back to my point on the report, Madam Mayor. Back to my point on the report, Madam Mayor. The Christmas lights switch on. I'd just like to invite everybody to Featherstone tonight. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, the section that we're in at the moment is comments on the report. I do appreciate that the leader mentioned the upcoming election, but if there is a code of conduct complaint about an existing councillor, that should be put in writing to me as the monitoring officer. It's not a matter for this chamber.
Councillor Speak, we're going to move on. Thank you. Are there any more comments or questions on Councillor Jeffrey's report? Councillor Ahmed.
Just coming back to the leader's comments on there, you shouldn't have raised it. I think that obviously that was intended to raise those points there. I think the point that you made on there, on the by-election, was unnecessary, and I think it was planned, so that comment was made. And I think to add, I'm on the Standards Committee. I think the complaints, I think clarification should come that complaints are when the person is acting in a responsible position as a councillor, because if somebody's out on the weekend clubbing, I'm sure they're not being a councillor or something like that, and they wouldn't like to be held responsible for those things. So I think that's the important thing. In terms of, you know, conduct of councillors, you know what I mean, like, come on, you know what I mean, look who's speaking. You know what I mean? So if we look at conduct of councillors, all of us know how the by-election came about. And obviously, if somebody of our party was out canvassing in those areas, I'll be honest with you, I would have stopped him. So I didn't agree with that. Obviously, elections, we have to understand the circumstances. We're all councillors here, and we know, and we should be responsible. But it wasn't a code of conduct complaint. The person who wrote that for you should have checked that for you. You should have raised it on a point of just being a moral point. You know, it was wrong to do that, and that was the point that you should have made. Okay. In terms of Remembrance Day, it's a correction here that some people maybe haven't read. I think you raised it. Is the remembrance actually is a Commonwealth remembrance, and I don't know who said it, but it's actually a Commonwealth remembrance. So it actually goes across other countries, because last time I looked, it was World War, and it involved soldiers from other countries. And that R is them as well, because they also died as well. It's last time I looked as well. In terms of you know, you mentioned the budget. Of the budget, you should have been. I know you had read out, because you get given a sheet every month. We do as well. Response to budget. Labour, please make sure you mention these comments so the press covers them. But the reality was that none of those things that Labour mentioned in the budget, you should have come out with them, said we're going to increase national insurance payments, we're going to increase, you know, all of a sudden, you know, we're going to increase this, we're going to increase that. None of them were part of the Labour manifesto. So the reality is, I would say the same thing, and unlike you and others in there as well. So we should be honourable enough to stand up in the middle of a council chamber and say that some of these things are actually wrong, and they are harmful to companies, to people out there. And some of them things, I'll agree with you, the Labour Party, whether they were right or wrong, were clear on the tax on private schools. They said it, they said, we're going to increase that. Everyone knew about it. And to be honest, I said, if they're elected on that, that is the right thing to do, because that's what they've told everyone. No one can pretend that they didn't know about it. And some people come to me and complain about that. I said, no, it was in the manifesto. It was there, everybody knew, and you should do it, but the other one wasn't. Oh, you've always got a point of order. What's the point of order?
What point of order is that, Councillor?
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I wrote the impression that this section of the meeting was about...
You're interrupting my speech on there. You know, you're old enough to know, you've been in the council chamber, it's comments like you do. You know, when you sat there constipated, blurting out every time, just speak properly, yeah? No, it's a comment, you know that.
Asking on a point of order to make sure that the agenda is adhered to. If there's questions, quite legitimate questions, quite right, that's what we're here for.
Can we just sit down, Councillor Tully, please?
We'll deal with his point of order.
We'll deal with your point of order. Can we all be quiet, please, and let Gillian deal with the point of order? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, councillors. This section of the agenda is to deal with comments on the matters raised in the leader's report. I think what's happening here, if I may respectfully say so, is that certain items are being taken and then the points are being stretched beyond what was actually said, and that is occurring on all sides of the chamber. I think perhaps if we just stick to the matters that are relevant to Wakefield that were raised in the leader's report, we might make some progress. Thank you.
Do you want to carry on, Councillor?
That's fine, like you've said there, but he always does that as a councillor in the chamber. He needs to, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, stands up all the time, blurts on for ages. Time yourself. You do it all the time. Practice what you preach. Don't come here. Councillor Jeffries has raised the report. You stand up and speak when somebody else has spoken. It remains within the report. Those items are raised. And I would defend, Labour has won the election. They had a manifesto. They need to deliver that manifesto. But most of the things that were in the budget were not in the manifesto. End of story. That's a fact.
Thank you. Councillor Farmer?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be brief and to the point. Question for Councillor Jeffries, just a quick one. You mentioned Orgreave. I had a lot of ex-friends, not ex-friends, friends who were ex-miners. So I fully support the campaign that this chamber has done for the Orgreave thing. The only problem I've got is, will they take as much respect and notice of what you want as they did do with the winter fuel allowance?
One would hope so, wouldn't they? Have you got something else?
Would that be 2 fingers or 1 finger they're giving to you?
But can I just answer? Nadeem, what irritates me about you is you stand up there sanctimoniously telling me what I should say in my report. It's my report and I choose what to say in it. You can say what you like in yours, but I say what I like in mine. Don't interrupt me, I don't interrupt you. I'm just sick and tired of your insinuations about that we're told what to say. Nobody's told what... Just a minute. Nobody is... Be quiet. Madam Mayor, can you deal with this?
Excuse me.
You are so rude. No, I'm not. You are rude. Oh, don't be ridiculous.
Can we sit down, please?
Can we sit down?
Take some heat out.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I heard the Leader of Council and the Leader of Opposition mentioned about the mining community in the report and questions. And I also want to say that the mining community on last weekend had a light up event, and I'm sorry to say that there's not many councillors here attended. And talking about the respect we should have for late Councillor Ishwood, you don't have any right to say that, because on the 18th of October, there was the unveil of that mining's will, the pit will. None of you cabinet portfolio holder turned up. So when I raised it, Councillor Jack Hemingway trying to defend himself and his cabinet is not good enough. I said to you, you said you're busy, everybody's busy.
Excuse me, Councillor Harvey, that's got nothing to do with the
John Trickett MP was there.
It's
so
got nothing to do with the election.
That we should pay respect.
What was raised
they did
in
not pay the
Councillor
respect
Jeffries'
themselves.
report. Thank you.
Right, I'm going to have my say, and I don't really care what you say. I'm going to respond to it, whether you like it or not. As you well know, Steve, because we spoke before, I don't care.
Excuse me,
As
Councillor
well,
Gert.
you well know, because we
Councillor
spoke
Gert.
before, I was
Councillor
against
Gert.
that being done before the funeral. So don't point your finger at us. We were against it. And I have spoken against it many, many times. So don't be pointing your finger at us three.
Councillor Gert, you are supposed to be responding to Councillor
that I was
Jeffrey's
against
report.
it. You know, because I spoke to you.
Right. We'll start again. Thank you.
Point of order, Madam Mayor, please.
Yes.
Could we all respectfully come through you? There's been no respect for the Deputy Mayor in that chair today, and it's disgusting. She's doing a job, and we should be respectful for the Mayor and not shout across this chamber.
Thank you. Excuse me, we're moving on. Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey, for your report. Agenda item 6 is to consider Cabinet Member reports. Cabinet members have up to 5 minutes to present their report, and there are further 15 minutes allocated to enable each Cabinet member to respond to any questions or brief comments on matters within their portfolio area. The first report is from the portfolio holder for climate change and environment. Councillor Hemingway, would you please introduce your report to Council?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor, and can I just concur very much with the comments of Councillor Pritchard. Let's all remember why we're in this chamber, to represent our residents and to do the business that they care about in this council chamber, and let's all try and conduct this meeting with a bit more respect and a bit less heat and noise, please. In moving my report, I want to draw members' attention to the following items. On agenda page 14, we've got the hugely successful free tree giveaway, which is back, and I want to thank the Council's Library Service and Councillor Appleyard for working closely with the Environment Department on this with us. Trees are available to collect throughout the Council's Library Service and also at Thorns Park Nursery. Residents can take up to 3 trees. They're available to collect at the nursery on Sunday mornings from 10 while 12. There's more details in my report. But once again, these are native species that we encourage residents to plant in their gardens with lots of benefits for nature and to improve the local area completely free of charge. On agenda page 12, I've provided an update on a couple of changes regarding council services. There's a brief update on the Biffa municipal waste contract, which we discussed verbally at the last council meeting, and also on changes to how death certificates are managed with bereavement services and hospitals and GPs. The new process is more rigorous and it requires independent scrutiny, but I'm pleased to say that both council teams involved in those changes have managed them very effectively, and touch wood up to press, the transition has been pretty seamless, but I will keep council informed of developments. Earlier this week, I met with a number of our litter heroes to say thank you and hear about the amazing work they've been doing for us in their communities. And in the coming year, I'm looking to build on that and relaunch our Litter Heroes campaign that was very successful a couple of years ago, get off on a really strong footing and get out into our communities supporting litter pickers and those who want to look after the local area. And finally, members will be aware that the Welbeck Public Inquiry concluded earlier this week into the appeal extension. We're expecting a decision from Her Majesty's Inspector in the next couple of months, and we'll keep Council informed. And finally, just to conclude my report, to wish all members a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, as this will be the last meeting before the festive season. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Are there any questions or brief comments on Councillor Hemingway's report? Councillor Sharp.
Hi, Jack. Just from last year, really, obviously in my ward we've got Renthorpe Environmental Society. They said they couldn't get hold of some trees last year and the top 3 were all gone. Have we run out of any this year that we can tell our constituents about?
Thank you for that question, Councillor. Yeah, I'm pleased to say we've got the scheme back this year. I think it has to be on the basis of first come, first serve. We will try and ensure that environment groups do get trees if they come forward to us. I encourage them to get in touch as soon as possible to register their interest. We've got around 4,000. It's a similar mix of native species as before, but if they get in touch with the service, we'll look to try and get them some trees sorted as soon as possible. Thank you.
Councillor Melanie Jones.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I welcome your comments about the litter pickers, and I'd just like to thank our litter pickers, which are Hemsworth Keep It Clean and the South Hindley Litter Picking Group. With regards to the South Hindley Litter Picking Group, we do have litter bugs, which are children that go litter picking, and I found it increasingly difficult to get them the kit to be able to do so. It's not provided by the council. Would the Deputy Leader look into that for us, please?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Absolutely, Councillor Jones will look into that. We do provide the free kits, so I'm not sure what's happened there, but we'll find out and we'll make sure we support that group. Thank you.
Councillor Spect.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like, through Councillor Hemingway, to thank Bereavement Services for the work it's doing to support Castleford Civic Society in its cemetery trail, which is a trail that's going to tell the rich history of Castleford through former residents. So any Castleford resident, when the trail is open, may find this really interesting. Thank you.
Any more questions or comments? Councillor Ali.
I welcome Councillor Jack Hemingway's report on tree planting. We've been allocated some tree planting by the White Rose Forest at Walter Nature Park. Can you get us an update when that will start, please? Thank you.
Councillor Pickersgill, did you have your hand up? No. Oh, sorry, Councillor Nichols.
Jack, thank you very much for your report and for including the work that's been done in Car Lodge Park. And can you pass massive thanks back to the Green Space team, particularly Linda Sugden and the Park Rangers, who gave tremendous help to our community groups, and we've had a fantastically refurbished rockery. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I'll come back on those 2 points. Just to pick up Councillor Ali's point, absolutely, it's really good that we were able to get some more trees in at Walton Clwyd Nature Park. We are finalising the planting schedule, and those dates will go out soon. We'll make sure that ward members in those wards where we're tree planting get the information, and also all the volunteers that are registered on the Council's Woodland Creation portal. And I'd encourage people to register on there if you're not already to get more information. And then thank you very much, Councillor Nichols, for those comments. I'll make sure they get back to the Park Service regarding the work in Car Lodge Park. Thank you. Oh, sorry, I've got...
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just to say, Jack, you've made a comment about bulk planting in Valley Gardens. I think I'd really like to say a massive thank you to the team that go out. They've also done tree planting and bulk planting in 2 other parts with local schools. They don't only come out and help them to support it, they explain the growing process, and the 2 members of staff that turn out really engage with the children. So please pass on massive thank you to them staff. Thanks again.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I just wonder whether Councillor Hemingway will be giving us some update about the Wellbeck Management Inspectorate inquiry that's just happened last week. So what is the Council's stance about that inquiry? And, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I'll pick up the last 2 comments just to say I fully agree with the Valley Gardens volunteers, which are doing an amazing group. They do some fantastic work, and we'll keep that relationship going. I did mention Welbeck at the public inquiry in my report, Councillor Harvey, so I'm not sure if you weren't listening at that stage to what I said around that, but we have concluded the inquiry now. We're waiting for the Majesty's Inspector's, His Majesty's Inspector's decision, which is due within the next couple of months. Obviously, that's for the Inspector to decide the outcome of the inquiry. I will keep Council informed of developments there. What I would say is whatever happens with that decision, the parts of the site that are returned to the Council, we will continue to develop into Newland Country Park, and hopefully we'll find out more in terms of the application soon. But I will keep Council informed, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Councillor Farmer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick one. I mean, I love all your green projects, Jack. I think they're fantastic. I just wondered what you thought about the 470 delegates you sent to the Labour Party, sent to the COP meeting. That wasn't very eco-friendly, was it? Thank you.
Councillor Harvey? Oh, sorry, Councillor Hemingway.
Yeah, I can try. I mean, I'm not responsible for the size of the government delegation that goes to represent us at national climate conferences, but I fully support us having a strong presence there to make sure we get a good international agreement on climate action. Thanks, Nick.
Councillor Harvey. Did you want to ask another question?
Just follow up the Wellbeck, because it is affecting 3 wards of this council. I just wonder why the council has withdrawn the objection against the extension of that development or application.
Planning specific matters in the council chamber, there's a place and a time for that. The council continue to fight its case throughout the appeal process, and as I say, we await the outcome. I don't think it'd be right and proper for us to debate the pits and pitfalls and wayfalls of a planning application within this council chamber.
If there's no more questions or comments, I'd like to thank Councillor Hemingway for his report. Next is the portfolio holder for adults and health. Councillor Faith Eptinstall, as Deputy Cabinet Member, would you please introduce the report to Council?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. In moving Councillor Collins' report, I'd like to highlight how diverse the work is that's happening across the portfolio. As the report demonstrates, we can see a range of services benefiting our residents across the district, whether it be the STI testing for under 25s, help to stop smoking, or access to the Wakefield Independent Advocacy Service. There's a lot of great work happening across our teams. As the report also states, we have received formal notification from the CQC, who have started a local authority assurance assessment of adult social care services. The earliest that they'll visit will be late January next year. I'd like to emphasise that we welcome this assessment that will enable us to provide the best possible services for those that we care for. I'd also like to echo Councillor Collins' best wishes to you all for a very happy festive season, and to say a huge thank you to everyone who's going to be working across our services over the festive season. We really do value the work of all our teams. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Any questions or brief comments on the report? Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. On page 17, if I may, first of all, I'd like to comment before I go on to a question, because they're both very relative, if you'll allow me, Deputy Mayor. The first one is our Stop Smoking and Support Grant. Obviously, we all welcome funding that's going to enable people to quit smoking, and at the same time, the government has announced the issue in terms of vapes, which is a plague on our children and our society, as we know at the moment. I'm hoping we're going to get some more information about that one, Deputy Mayor. Can I go on then to the next paragraph, Combating Drugs Partnership and Alcohol-Related Deaths Review Panel. I'm very satisfied and hopeful that this panel is going to be very positive in the work that it does, connecting with the information that's already out there in our communities through our local PACT teams. This again is a blight on society across the wards, and we've had reports through our PACT teams of great work that's been carried out in our communities in trying to deal with the drugs trade. I think I'd be very grateful to see how this is progressing, Madam Mayor, and how the partnership and what the partnership is made up for, because I think the community as a whole would welcome the work that's taking place in this, and it is worthwhile in advancing more information through the community and through our comms as much as we can. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you for those comments, Councillor Rhodes, and we'll be sure to keep you updated. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Scott.
Thank you. I'm glad to see we've got the new translation and interpretation service, which includes BSL, Makaton and lip reading. And I think it's really good, because when I worked here, we didn't have anything like that, and it had been me or another girl called Katie that would be called upon to translate for people that were signing. So I think this is really good that we've got somebody that, or something where people that use BSL or Makaton or lip read can use. Thank you.
Any more comments or questions? If not, I'd like to thank Councillor Eptinstall. Thank you. Next is the portfolio holder for children and young people. Councillor Isherwood, would you please introduce the report to Council?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor. Before I present my report, I'd like to say thank you to everyone for the tributes they gave at the last council meeting, and also for the support I've had since the passing of Graham. Moving on to my report, I just want to highlight the fact that we have had representatives from government departments. We've had an article in the CYP News, and Victoria Schofield has been interviewed with the LGC. All this, I think, illustrates that we as a service, Wakefield Service, is developing a really high profile nationally. And I think that's down to the excellent work that's being done within the service by everyone involved. And for that, I'd like to thank everybody who works within the service. I'd also like to echo the well wishes for the Christmas and the New Year, and hope everybody has a good time. Thank you.
Are there any questions or brief comments on Councillor Isherwood's report? Councillor Sharp.
Hi Margaret, welcome back, love. It was mentioned at Audit Committee, so I would have to mention it here as well. So obviously on your manifesto it's quite clear, Labour manifesto, school places for kids that are going to come out of private education back into the mainstream system. It'd be really helpful to know how many that would be and whether you can come back by the next council meeting and put it in your next report. Thank you.
In relation to that, it's difficult to know how many. It would be difficult to calculate. But I've been assured that we have got the capacity to cope with any influx from the private sector.
Councillor Farmer.
No, it's just a quick comment, actually. Well done, Margaret. Absolute respect for you. Take care.
We shall now move to the portfolio holder for communities and poverty. Councillor Cummins, would you please introduce your report to Council?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Just a couple of things I want to add. We are in the 16 days of action, that's domestic violence fortnight. And I just want to say a massive thank you to the Deputy Leader, to the Chief Executive and to my Deputy for agreeing to become White Ribbon Ambassadors. White Ribbon Ambassadors are men within organisations that actually don't condone violence against women. So thank you. The next thing I'd like to mention is the pension credit campaign. We've now done 13 events. We've reached 159 people. And we've managed to help a good percentage of those people. But not just that, the vouchers have started going out now for pensioners, either the £80 voucher for the pensioners who do receive a winter fuel allowance, or the £130 for those pensioners who are on council tax credit that have had their winter fuel allowance ceased. And we are receiving some absolutely fabulous feedback from those people. Lots of thank you cards, lots of letters, lots of emails. So I just want to pay a massive thank you to our welfare team for what they've done around getting those vouchers out in a timely fashion. And I think, Madam Deputy Mayor, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Are there any questions or brief comments on the report? Councillor Sharp.
Sorry, what are the men called? What did you say the men were called? Something, the men that are against violence and women are called what? Sorry? White Ribbon Ambassadors. Okay, so... So does that mean then that all the men are White Ribbon Ambassadors in the district? Because, so not all men can, so everyone, all the men who aren't White Ribbon Ambassadors condone the violence against women and girls. Do you know how, like, ridiculous that sounds?
Thank you, Councillor Sharp, and I take your comments on board.
Councillor Metford.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I just want to say a massive thank you to everybody who's been involved in the pension credit campaign. Normanton was one of the venues. We held it in the Baptist Church. Big thank you to those as well. We had a fantastic attendance in Normanton, and we're still getting feedback from it now. We do not many houses in Normanton of people we felt would benefit from it. And it was really great to see some of the people who were quite nervous about attending actually coming along to the event. It took a bit of doing to get them up to go up and speak to Citizens Advice and the welfare team, but they did do it, and that was fantastic to see. A big thank you to Citizens Advice, Age UK and the council welfare team. As I say, we've had fantastic feedback. We had another event at the venue this week, and people were coming up to us and saying thank you. And the great thing about it is that it's had a knock-on effect, because not only did people get help at the event, people are still talking about it, and they were coming up to us as councillors when we went to the Christmas fair, last weekend, and just talking about the things that they'd learnt from there. And some of the people who'd not had the courage to go and talk to the advisors are now seeking help, and we're able to tell them where to get it. So massive thanks.
Yeah, thanks for that feedback. It is going down really, really well. One thing I did forget to mention, people may wonder what the basket on the table at the front is. An organisation in Pontefract are raising awareness about food waste, and they got the members of their team to actually knit or crochet a vegetable to try and raise awareness that we shouldn't be wasting food. And those items there in that basket are free for councillors to take, just to remind them not to waste food.
Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I'd like to add my thanks also to Maureen about the pension credit campaign. We had a successful campaign at Airedale, and I'd like to say thank you to the people that came, helped the aged, Citizens Advice, the council's benefit team. They all put lots of hard work in. It was really helpful. And we also did the door knocking and got to speak to lots of people about the help that the help and the support they could get towards their winter fuel allowance. So thank you. I'd like to add Airedale's thanks for that event.
Councillor Ali.
Yeah, I welcome my colleague, Councillor Maureen Cummings' report. I just want to say that it's Islamophobia Awareness Month this month, and I was just wondering, it would be nice if Wakefield Council could do something next year, possibly around raising awareness or something. And I also want to mention the great work that's happening on pension credit campaign, and I look forward to working with her and Councillor Fairtepinstall in organising and hosting the next the pension credit event in Crofton in the new year.
Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to add to Councillor Cummings' report, if that's all right. A couple of things have happened since this has gone out, but I feel it's important that we should mention them. I know that you mentioned the King's Voluntary Award. The King's Award for Voluntary Services has been awarded to the 5 towns support, veteran support up in Featherstone. And I think that's credit to the volunteers there for Alan, Andy, Joe, Maxine and Eileen, and all the hard work that goes into that. Also, we had an event in a primary school where a veteran, he was 104 and he was 105 the day after the event, and all the school children, there were 90 primary school children sat in that assembly, and the respect that they showed to Godfrey were absolutely amazing. It were all about their World War II topic, so it were great that we could get them in, and we got the cadets involved as well, so they come and give a little talk on them, which piqued a little interest in the cadet services, which would be brilliant for the children's services if that gets recognised as a youth organisation, as they rightly so should be. And then there was another thing. Oh, and as affiliation with HMS Agamemnon is going from strength to strength. They came down for remembrance service, but prior to that, they came down earlier in the week and they did some work up at the street kitchen. So they did some painting and decorating services up there and restoration. And then they went and helped and served out at the street kitchen on the nights. So all credit to them and thanks for them for supporting us at our services. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Page, did you have your hand up?
I just want to repeat what Councillor Medford said. We had a fantastic event in Horbury, and as everybody knows, Horbury is a more affluent part of the district, and if we can have 29 people come away from an event like that, better off, with more money to put in the local economy, I think it shows that we need to carry that on. So thank you, Maureen, for bringing that to Horbury.
Councillor Keith.
Yeah, it's adding the congratulations to that. Basically, my work colleague Councillor Fraser and I have been launching a spotlight surgery on the same subject, and we're going to arrange for Maureen to come bring one of your successful events to us in January. What I want to point out, though, I've subsequently formed a partnership with Age UK, and just to point out to people that a lot of people in my ward come and complain that they were knocked off the winter fuel allowance because they got a small pension. But because that meant that they didn't claim pension credit, there's different ways in which they can be put on back onto that. And Age UK know all about these, where you might qualify for a different disability grant or a carer's allowance that would put you back into the situation of maybe having that eligibility. So it's worthwhile coming to these events, even if you're one of those people who thinks, well, look, I don't qualify. You might qualify on a different, by a different route. And Age UK do a fantastic job. Well done, Maureen.
Councillor Ayub.
I just wanted to say a massive thank you for Maureen for the tireless work that she does with communities and community anchors, and the partnerships with Nova to make sure that the voluntary sector is heard and represented. I think the amount of people that have come into Light Waves and St Swithin's to redeem the vouchers, that's older people that don't have access to IT, and you know that you sort that little problem out for them. They are so, so happy. And I also think that the anchors within communities that offer, you know, drop-in services like the Leeds Credit Union, the food banks and the CABs makes it so much easier for communities. And that's the great work that you've been doing, Maureen. A massive thank you for that.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I am a trustee director of CAB, City Advice Bureau, and I'm sure that I'll pass on your well wishes to the hard-working staff there at CAB. But before I do that, I just want to remind this council, it is your rotten government made the decision to cut the winter fuel allowance for the most vulnerable people in our community, and you should feel shamed about that decision, and instead to pat each other's hand, shoulders and congratulate each other. But it's your government throw the people under the bus, as your government freezing the pensioners to death this winter, and you should feel really shameful about that.
Councillor Tully.
Making the point that it's a pity sometimes that we have to have a change in a particular benefit which attracts us to go hell for leather. We a campaign to make sure that people are on pension credit. I think as a campaigning council we should make sure all our pensioners, if they're entitled to pension credit, get it whether or not winter fuel allowance is in equation or it's not. I think it's something that we really ought to really take a look at going forward, because there's some of our pensioners that we could have got pension credit for in the last few weeks that could have been missing it for the last 3 or 4 or 5 years or whatever. This certainly changes when you look at pension credit. I would look at a situation where we should be sending an attendance allowance claim form to every pensioner over 65 years of age. Let them fill them in, let the system knock them. And that's the way that would need to be, because it makes it a lot easier, because some of our pensioners could still qualify through attendance allowance. And there's many people I've met on the campaign that weren't entitled to pension credit because of a other benefit. in my humble opinion, having worked in benefit for 25 years before I came here, were entitled to attendance allowance or would certainly meet the criteria, which would passport them through to it in any event. And that's where I think going forward, it'd be advisable for us to be focused on all year round, rather than at a particular time like this, when a decision has been made to take winter fuel allowance away from certain elements of our elder population.
Councillor Farmer.
Oh, yeah. Just based about the safety of women, especially over the Christmas period. I did read a report, I can't remember if it was TV or I read the report about the Ask Angela campaign and how many people in bars and clubs didn't know anything about it. Could you just confirm if that has been highlighted in the Wakefield district, the Ask Angela campaign, please? Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, we're always promoting, particularly around this time of the year, the Ask for Angela campaign, the safe spaces where people can go if they are struggling or they feel vulnerable. So we are promoting that quite heavily through our comms team. We've got a really good lead in our comms team that does actually promote that. So yes, I can give you that assurance. Can I just come back on something that Councillor Keith has just said? Age Concern are absolutely fantastic and they join us wherever we can on the campaigns, and people don't realise that they, even though they do receive a small personal pension, that they may be entitled to credits. You only need 1p of pension credit and it opens the door for every other benefit that you can get, including winter fuel allowance, free eye tests, teeths, your teeth seen to, TV licences, etc. And we will continue this campaign, not just over the Christmas period, but certainly into the new year. One or two of the wards have actually put forward dates for January, and I would encourage those that haven't got dates in the diary for a pension credit campaign to actually get in touch. Thank you.
Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to go back to the 16 days of action and just make people aware of the Clare's Law. If you're in a new relationship, you can put a request into the police service, and that's really, really important. But equally, it's only important if the people that have been abused in that situation are reporting it, so as it does get recorded and it stops the perpetrator continuing that. And thank you, Maureen, for highlighting it every year. You know what it's, you know, it means a lot to all of us in here. Thank you.
Councillor Rote.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Could I just add one other item in terms of benefits that I think needs more advertising? And that is that in terms of council tax collection, any person who is caring for an individual who has any mental illness confirmed, such as dementia and Alzheimer's, etc., are entitled to claim 25% discount from the council tax. This is not well known out in our communities, and I think we ought to have some kind of advertising campaign ready to have posters put up wherever we can, within libraries, community centres, etc., to get this message out. A lot of people who are actually doing this are A, saving the health service a load of money, B, are actually thankful for the services that they're getting from our adult care, and at the same time are very proud, a lot of them are too proud to actually go and find out that this is available. So I would urge, please, that this is part of every campaign we put out there in terms of benefits and entitlements. It's an entitlement that we do actually have this more open and honest out there for people to claim. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Do you want to come back, Councillor Cummins?
Yeah, it's amazing how many benefits are out there that people don't know about. One particular benefit is if you adapt your property, whether it be a private property or whether it be a social housing, if you adapt your property to actually facilitate a disabled person, then you will receive a banding, a reduction in your banding. And lots of people don't know that. There are lots of benefits out there that people don't know about, and that's why I encourage anyone and everyone to actually come and have a benefit check and be open and honest with that advisor, whether they be from Age Concern, Citizens Advice or our local welfare team. Then there is usually something that we can do to help them.
Thank you. We've exhausted us 15 minutes now, so I'd like to thank Councillor Cummins for her report. The next report is the portfolio holder for culture, leisure and sport. Councillor Appleyard, would you please introduce your report to Council?
Thank you, Deputy Madam Mayor. Yes, in introducing my report, I want to draw out really and pay attention to and pay credit to the work that the officers do in terms of in cultural, leisure and sport, but how it supports other departments within the council, whether it's adults and health and the referrals that we've got through the health services, whether it's the school health surveys or working with our colleagues in regeneration, with what we've done with the Panto Trail and the work that we've done with the market. So I think it just shows just how we support one another across the department, across the council, sorry. Light Up's been fantastic. I'm hoping that you've kind of either been into Wakefield and seen it. As the leader mentioned, the projections on County Hall, Downwood Street and across the districts I think have been fantastic. I really welcome the feedback from the community that have thanked the council for what they've done in kind of giving them such wonderful displays over the start of the festive season. And just draw attention that obviously it's not over yet. It does run till the 30th of November. We've got the Ossett light switch on the 30th. We've got Pontefract tomorrow as well after Storm Bert's interrupted our initial plans. So I encourage you to take part. Thank you.
Councillor Morley.
Thank you, Anna. Yes, I did walk into Wakefield on the Sunday to see the light up. It was phenomenal. It was great to see the city looking so vibrant at that time of night. One thing that I really did like out, though, was the projections all told a story, especially outside County Hall. Hearing about, obviously, the Stanley Longboat was mentioned in there and everything else. So I thought that was a real, a massive positive that a lot of other places don't do. It was, everyone was really taking up on that. So it's been a phenomenon. I hope it just goes from strength to strength.
Councillor Gert.
Yes, thank you. I see the mural for Fitzwilliam Station. I haven't been out to have a close look at it, but from the picture it looks very good. So congratulations with that. I bet that didn't need a QR code though to explain what the image was supposed to be, unlike the one proposed for Nottingley. And I know we've exchanged a few emails, and I know you've told me that those designs have been scrapped. But my concern, and I need to voice this, is that when you've got an artist that thinks it's okay to use the Nazi SS symbol to signify lightning bolts and has to be told that that's not appropriate, I don't think that's an artist we should be working with. And it's all right going back to him and saying, right, do a redesign. I'd rather just see a different artist. And I'd like you to give me that assurance that we're not going to be associated with this artist and we'll have a different artist, because it doesn't matter what he comes up with now. If I see any of that in my ward, all I'm going to see is those Nazi SS lightning bolts. So I'd like your assurance that we're going to use a different artist. Thank you.
I think he didn't use SS symbols. I think that's deliberately misleading in this chamber. I think it's quite wrong for you to say that the artist deliberately. I'm still speaking, thank you. I think it's wrong to say that that is the symbol that he used. Given that it was a mural celebrating the heritage of Ferrybridge Power Station, it's quite clear that there were lightning bolts. At the time, obviously, there was feedback and there have been adaptations to remove any suggestion, but I think it's a matter of perception, and at the moment we are working with that artist. We have got a further consultation period, as you know. There are further designs that are coming forward. I think we need to focus on what is going to happen next with the designs and focus on that, because as I've already said to you, those designs aren't going to be used now anyway, so you're bringing up things that I don't think are relevant.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple of questions about this report. If we look at page 30, Councillor Appleyard has got some data here talking about the students are pursuing a healthy lifestyle with reduced smoking and alcohol consumption uses. So how exactly have this conclusion have been drawn, and how reliable are they, given the fact that we're talking about a group of students? And furthermore, it is said that inequality still remain, particularly amongst the disadvantaged group. Could we get more clarity on this, exactly what you mean by this, and how the council plan to address this inequality? So the other thing I'd like to also look at is, you implied in your report that you have, the council wanted to ensure that the city centre will attract a lot of people this Christmas time for shopping. But however, from what I can see, there's very little mention about the events or the activities will achieve this. Would you please give this council some more further details or update about how you're going to achieve this for the city centre of Wakefield? Thank you.
I'll deal with the last one first. So any cultural or heritage activity that we put on as a council, the Hatchling's been a fantastic example. Everything that we've done this year has brought people into to the city. So for example, when we had the Hatchling, we had, I think it was, in fact I'll get the detail here for you. We had people spending, sorry, bear with me, 34% of attendees were spending between £20 and £50 in the city centre. 12% were spending over £50. The businesses in the city centre have thanked us and recorded the fact that obviously they get more footfall when we put on events like that. So obviously what we have, we've still got events going on in our year that will continue to bring people into the city centre, but our district, so tomorrow night, whether it's Pontefract or Ossett at the weekend, and obviously going forward into 2025, cultural events, heritage events, sporting events will continue, and there's a natural knock-on effect that you support the kind of the regional economy, the city centre economy, the town economy, when those things happen. Okay. With regards to the school health survey, obviously we're listening to student voices. It isn't going and talking to the teachers, but it's speaking to the students themselves. It's working with those students to make sure that they are making those positive changes. Forgive me, I forgot what your other question was. You can look at disadvantaged groups in different ways. There's a socio-economic kind of factor, whether students are on pupil premium. So you've got disadvantage in that way, and it's about giving those students targeted support to make sure that they are making those kind of positive changes. And I hope that answers your question.
Councillor Graham.
Thanks, Mayor. It was to welcome the Thorns Park track investment. Just want to highlight that, Hannah, and say really massive thank you to the team and to the council as a whole, because up and down the country, when we've got other councils or other institutions not investing and redoing their tracks, you know, the athletics team that worked down there came to us and asked for this. They've got brand new light and a brand new sound system, a state-of-the-art track, and not just that. After all the consultation we did, they came back, you know, they don't want this or they don't want that, or they want 10 lanes and not 6. And instead of giving them the cheapest version, we listened to it. We actually did some proper consultation, listened to what they wanted and delivered on it. And I've had lots of messages of thank you from parents because, you know, it might seem a bit elitist, but those kids and those adults down there training, they're the next generation of Olympians for this country, and they've won medals in the past. So really welcome it. It's not just, I know it's in my ward, but it actually serves every single person's ward in the chamber. So very much welcome. Thank you.
Councillor Melanie Jones.
Thank you, Deputy Madam Mayor. Fitzwilliam Station mural, Councillor Appleyard, thank you. I feel quite aggrieved that you've just brought that up, something so negative. I'd like to thank Morris, an 80-odd-year-old volunteer of the Friends of Fitzwilliam Station, that put all his energies and time into completing this project, along with MHA Communities. Morris has completed this project with school children, disabled people and community groups to make something positive in Fitzwilliam, and to bring it into negativity like that. So I'd like to thank...
What's your point of order, Councillor Gert?
It's a complete misrepresentation of what I said. Complete. I actually complimented the mural. I said it was a good mural. Brilliant mural. And that's what I'm saying, is we want something like that in Nottingham. So don't be saying I've said it's a bad mural. It's not a bad mural. I'm not here for you to just allow them to have a go at me every single day. It's not on.
We'll take that as a point of personal explanation. Thank you.
My point was to talk about an artist in comparison to Edgware Arts, make it very clear that Edgware Arts have had nothing to do with the point that you have brought up. Edgware Arts have worked with the community group on this, and I want to make it very clear that Edgware Arts has nothing to do with what you've brought up.
Councillor Jones, can you keep it to Councillor Appleyard's report?
So thank you, Councillor Appleyard, for coming to Fitzwilliam that day, and thank you for the Culture Department for giving a grant to the Friends of Fitzwilliam Station.
Councillor Sharp.
No, it doesn't matter, because you just shoot people down and everything gets misrepresented, so there's no point in actually saying anything. She's categorically said that everything that he said was wrong when it's absolutely bang on what he said. And if you want a point of reference at the end of the meeting, Madam Mayor, I will give you that point of reference, but in no way, shape or form, okay, can someone come and say that
Councillor Appleyard's
yes,
report here.
but she sanctioned an artist to put on the side of a building, okay?
Do you want to comment on this or not?
Okay.
On Councillor Appleyard's
Right, okay,
report?
well, might as well now, might as well. So,
What's your point of order, Councillor Eyre?
Point of order. Yeah.
Councillor.
I don't know his name, but you should know, as a group whip, you should know the rules of the council, and the councils are, that was changed about 3 years ago, so it was any matter under the portfolio holder, including the report.
That's correct. Thank you. Councillor Sharp.
the point is, Madam Mayor, Councillor Appleyard is out of her depth. She doesn't know what's going on. She has no clue about the portfolio that she's been gifted by the leader of the council. She's, I'm entitled to speak. I'm entitled to speak.
Can we be quiet?
I'm entitled to speak.
Point of order.
Out of order.
It's not. She also has a deputy portfolio holder who apparently is has experience within the arts. Councillor Appleyard is also on the Ethics and Governance Committee, and I want to state that there was no ethics in authorising this mural to be printed, and there was no governance because she obviously didn't know what she was actually doing at the time. So, unfortunately, she can't even...
Sharp, can I just remind you, this is about the portfolio, not the portfolio holder. Thank you.
Now, I will just end that if you think you're going to point or design murals in Renthorpe and Outward West, my area of that ilk, no chance is that going to come anywhere near. And we will not be using that specific artist that you recommend to do anything within our ward.
Councillor Farmer.
Yeah, I was going to bring up mural, you know. Reminds me of Hilda Ogden and Stan Ogden. Thought three birds would be going across our wall there, but myself and Councillor Rowley, unfortunately Duncan wasn't allowed, not allowed to be there, Duncan wasn't there, but we had a really, really positive meeting with our artist, Shiraz. He contacted the school, he'd been around to all the various groups, and he came back and he gave us fantastic feedback. So, although it's disappointing that the other artists haven't had the same, basically the same bit feedback that we've had, I can just say that our artist, Shiraz, was spot on. And I'm sure Councillor Rowley will back me up. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is anybody going to throw it at me?
Councillor Speak.
I don't even know where to start. Thank you. The light switch-ons, fantastic use of our getting good ones, add good ones. I do our light switch on in our area and I've done for years, and this year was absolutely disastrous. They didn't even come on, and they knew they weren't going to come on, and they never came to tell me. Everybody stood there, they watched us do the countdown, they didn't come on, and then when I went to look for them, I couldn't find them. There was nowhere in my vicinity to find. Once the crowds had all dispersed, I found them and had a word, and he said, yeah, I said, the lights didn't even come on, we've just done the countdown, and he said, yeah, we know, the fuse wasn't working. That wasn't even brought to my attention, and to have the whole, all Ward 9 constituents waiting for some lights to come on, and the council knowing they weren't going to come on and not even inform me, I think is, I don't know, I don't even know where to go with that one. Yeah.
Quick response, Councillor Appleyard, please.
Thank you. I can understand why that would be really frustrating and upsetting, and I'll feed it back in what way I can.
Right, I'm sorry to the others who wanted to speak, but we've exhausted us 15 minutes, so we'll carry on to the next item, please. Next is a portfolio holder for planning and highways. Councillor Morley, would you please introduce your report to Council?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just in light of the comments by the lead regarding buses, we have been working with the Mayor and the West Yorkshire Combined Authority. Officers have been quite busy, and some of the routes that Arriva have given up, we have got interest from other bus companies, so that is quite positive that we will look to fetch another operator in. The routes where Arriva are reducing services, that is more difficult, more challenging, as you can't have two operators on the same service. It just doesn't work out, and bus companies don't really want to do that. So I'm hoping that the cuts that Arriva have made, even though I'm totally opposed to them, will stabilise their routes and make sure that the horrendous cancellation delays that we've seen across the district will be completely different. I also just want to pay tribute and say thank you to our gritting team. We launched our gritting last week, and didn't we have some snow? Didn't it come down? But the teams were out and they did a fantastic job. It's never an easy job. They're out at unsociable hours. I did get comments on Facebook, well, they're only doing their job. Well, it's funny that gritting is not their full-time job. A lot of them work from the highways, but it's interesting talking to them. We've had people from Strategic Housing. A lady came forward, she wanted to be a gritter, so she's doing that. We have people coming from Jack's area. We have people coming from licensing, coming forward to do this work as well. So they're doing a little bit more and above their own jobs as well. So I pay tribute to them and the work they do. With that, Madam Mayor, I'm quite happy to move my report and take any questions. Thank you.
Yes, really pass on our congratulations to the team, Matthew, because last week I think we had literally 4 seasons in a couple of hours, really, you know what I mean? Not only did we have snow at the beginning of the week, we had Storm Bert at the end of the week and flooding and all the things. Did a fantastic job. I'm just going to highlight, I can't remember whether last month you put on the crossing that we've got at the end of Edward Drive across A61, but you've got some new crossings in here. The crossing that goes on the A61 will add to the traffic calming measures that we put on there with the cameras. I think that's a brilliant job, and again pass on our congratulations to that. Just an update though on the 20s plenty that we had put on in our ward, which is one of the biggest in the district, as you know. It took some time to get us, but because it is that big. We did tell you that last time when we did some backup on this with the PCSOs deploying the smiley SIDS, that people thought that the 20s plenty had ended when they got past the school and didn't realise that it still continued. So we're putting more roundels in and more signage in there to make sure that people adhere to the 20s plenty. But the one thing I did, I spoke to Daniel Cable of the PCSO just before coming to the council meeting, and said that there will be still deploying with the smiley SIDS and warning people that they're not doing 20 mile an hour until the new year. So the situation might change there. But again, thank you with all that you've done there for the crossing and the 20s plenty. Thank you.
Yeah, your colleague, actually, Councillor Fraser, raised this at last council meeting, Councillor Keith, and yes, it was a scheme that has been promoted by yourselves as local members with consultation in the community, so I do welcome that, and obviously the crossing on Leeds Road is another benefit. I know everybody, we all want crossings, and you know, keep coming forward with your locations and suggestions. We'll try and deliver as many as possible. Thank you.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Earlier on, Councillor Hemingway reassured the Council that we should not comment on active planning matter, planning application, and also, indeed, the undecided His Majesty's inquiry. But can Councillor Morley explain why Wakefield First and West Yorkshire Combined Authority comment with his support, their support for Broadcut Farm, which has just received the outline application to this council by a 3A group. So why should Wakefield First or West Yorkshire Combined Authority comment on that with the support on LinkedIn?
Councillor, are you still on, you're on the planning committee, aren't you? You've come off that now, so obviously we don't start commenting on individual plan applications in this council chamber, but obviously there is statutory consultees that will consult on these, you know, these plans coming forward.
Councillor Wilton.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Can I thank Councillor Morley and as well as his deputy and my ward colleague, Councillor Khan, for their continued support with the traffic calming scheme in Kirkthorpe, which has started this week. This has been something that I know Councillor Medford and the Parish Council have been working on for a long time. So we're very excited to see it get underway, and there's a lot of very excited residents about it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Wilton, for making the point. It's one of the things that does frustrate me. I think it frustrates all of the council chamber. When we start talking about highway schemes, they're never really quick wins. They can take longer than you expected. And I think some of the schemes you mentioned there go back to Councillor Dagger time, Dave Dagger, who can forget Dave, in the council chamber. So I'm glad to see that are coming to fruition now.
Councillor Scott.
Thank you. Councillor Morley, I'm really pleased to see that we're working on managing HMOs and the concentration of them in Castleford and Wakefield. I live in a large terraced house, and it's rife around where I live, the number of HMOs that's coming up. Thank you for the work that you're doing. I didn't know smell of cannabis till they moved in.
Are there any more questions or brief comments on the report? If not, I'd like to thank you, Councillor Morley. I thought my voice carried enough. The portfolio holder for regeneration and economic growth. Councillor Graham, would you please introduce your report to Council?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I'd just like to highlight two things in the report. First of all, we've had planning applications go in for the Towns Fund in Wakefield City Centre. So we are converting knocking down 2 buildings and making our cathedral square there. I think there's a nice little picture. And I know it's been all over social media, it's been in the newspapers, etc. I think it's just great to see that things I always say when it comes to council, things are moving in the background and you just don't see it happening. But it's nice to see plan applications going in when we're nearly at the point where we're getting spades in the ground on some of these and long overdue. So that's exciting. We've obviously got Castleford's Towns Fund progressing as well. Nottingham planning application went in this week as well, which I hope members welcomed. I'm always scared to mention it. But I think I said in that press release, that's long overdue. They've waited long enough. It's time to deliver, and we're cracking on with it. And we've got Town Centre Regeneration Fund, the 10 million that the leadership invested across the district, still ticking along in the background. Second thing I'd like to highlight are the learners at our adult education service. They held an event which I know my deputy Joe attended, and it was just to say, it's not always easy, I think, for people. When you go to school, you're forced to go and you've got to be there. But for a lot of adults who return to education, it can sometimes take a lot of bravery to get yourself back in and have a go at it. And lots of fantastic achievements there. I spoke to one person, and it wasn't just about getting that qualification. It was about what it did for their confidence and their mental health, and just opened up a whole new world. They made friends, etc. So big thank you to all of the staff, to everyone who attended, and congratulations to them. With that, Madam Mayor, move the report. Happy to take any questions or comments.
Are there any questions or brief comments on the report? Councillor Gert.
Yes, thank you, Michael. And yes, when I saw the press release that we're finally moving forward with the demolition, I had to give out a little cheer, because I think all of us that have been involved with it, or I'll rephrase that, all of us that inherited this, because none of us were in this from the beginning, I think we'll all be glad to see the end of this. Point I want to raise with you, because I've had a few phone calls about it. People aren't able to find the planning application for the demolition online. And I had a look at myself last night on the public one, and I couldn't find it. And obviously people are wanting to see it, because seeing's believing. And we've had so many false starts, haven't we? So could you look into that and find out why that's not on the public domain, please?
Councillor Keith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What I would like to do is the little bit on page 40, the regeneration home energy efficiency grants. Could we also build that into, Maureen, when we go around doing the information given to the people regarding home energy, and to say to them that they might qualify for some of those. But the main thing that I wanted to do, and I took consultation on this to see whether it's in your portfolio, and I hope it is. But basically, I've been in consultation with residents in recent surgeries and recent correspondence from unions relating to a developing situation of a review of numbers employed and terms and conditions by a major employer on Junction 41 industrial estate that's in my ward. I have deep concerns not only for the security of the jobs, but what looks like a fire and rehire situation developing. Can you reaffirm the council's position to prevent this kind of and rail against fire and rehire within our district?
Thanks, Charlie. I think I know exactly what you're referring to. I can provide reassurance in terms of, I think it's out in the public what might be possible from that company. But just to reassure you that I think they are in talks with unions, and we've been in response to them as well with our key accounts management service. And we are on hand, as we have been in the past, to help any local business and the employees of that business should they need to in the future. I think we all know in here our view on fire and rehire, and that's not to link that to that situation. I'm not saying that is what's happening, but I think just on that, our view on it, I think we made it clear in this chamber that we are totally against that and don't want to see it in our district, and I think we stand by that.
Councillor Speak.
Hi, Graham. I just want to make sure that alongside, obviously, demolition, I've had a lot of messages to make sure that they're not left without facilities in that process, and to make sure that we're timing it so there is toilet facilities and other changing facilities being done, so that they're not, when the demolition comes, we're not left without them facilities for all kids and everybody who are playing football and I've got teams going on at the moment. They do seem to be concerned about it, so I said I would reiterate it, that obviously we need to time that right, and if you can just try and
Yeah, just come back. I think it's a really good point. I think the building, obviously, that's getting demolished. Is the main building isn't being used now anyway. And in terms of the new pavilion, whilst that's getting built, we have got plans in place to use other changing facilities. So the many sports teams and many sports teams and volunteers down there will have their facilities that they need throughout the whole process. So very, very confident of that. But yeah, really important point.
If there's no more questions or brief comments on the report, I'd like to thank you, Councillor Graham, for your report. The final Cabinet Member report is that of the portfolio holder for resources and property. Councillor Shaw, can you please introduce your report to Council?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just pull out a couple of things. One for information and one that I'm really interested in, and I think we should all be interested in, and that's the student elections. Out of all my report, when I saw this coming through and what the elections team are doing and going into schools and offering these elections to show people what democracy is all about. And I think it's really important because having 5 grandkids and talking to them, ages between 12 and 26, the older ones do know because they've been taken to elections. Some of the young ones, when you start talking to them, it's a void. And they don't understand what it is, they don't understand how to get information, they don't understand what happens when people go to these polling booths and everything. So it's a really great initiative to get into schools. And what I would ask everybody is to promote that, certainly outside, and to tell the schools that this is available, and the elections team are more than willing to go up there and make sure that they're running these elections. If we ever want a future in this, you've only got to look at what's happening around the world in all these different things to see that it's so important that these things get embodied in young children right from the beginning. So I think it's really important, and I'm really pleased that that's going on. The second bit's for information, actually, and it's probably apt after listening to the first, I don't know, half an hour of this council meeting, what I'm going to read out now, and that is, on the 20th of March 2024, council resolved to ensure that there was a clear reporting mechanism for councillors to record incidents of harassment and abuse. Reports have also been taken to Ethics and Governance Committee pertaining to this topic, and officers have worked to develop a reporting form for all councillors. The information gathered using this form will help shape training and support that will be offered to councillors. The online form will be circulated by the committee team after this meeting via email, and I certainly am going to encourage everyone who's experienced abuse to report this using this form. It's information, but believe you me, it's important information. Okay, with that, Madam Mayor, I move my report.
Are there any questions or comments on the report? Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. And I do appreciate Councillor Leslie Shaw, your initiative to educate the next generation on democracy, on election. But how would you be able to explain to them that your Chancellor Exchequer promised everything before the election? No tax rises, not even 1 penny, everything been wholly all costed out. And then when you got into power, you raised everything under the sun. Pensioners can't be exempted, farmers can't be. Private school education, I have paid my 3 children through private school, and I know why I paid it for. I'm a struggling working parent. And then what else you have done? In every single small businesses,
point of order,
employer and I. So how can you explain it to the children of democracy? They lie through their teeth and get in.
Councillor Hemingway.
My point of order, Madam Mayor, is that Councillor Harvey is not speaking to the report or anything that was in the purview of Councillor Shaw's portfolio or his ability to influence or control, and has no relevance under this agenda item.
Thank you. Councillor Farmer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Page 41, Ossett Town Hall. Fantastic, stage 1 is completed. Can you give a date of when stage 2 is going to start? Thank you. Madam Mayor.
Simple answer is no. As you can see, the council's going through its budgets at the moment. You can see some of the problems and issues that we've got that we have to resolve first. I think you're right, Councillor Farmer. Certainly Project 1 is excellent and it's being used, I understand. Certainly the library facilities being used by a number of different people. So that's great news, and I'm sure we'll look at it in the budget and we'll look at developing it, and I'm sure that we'll do it at the right time.
Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Yeah, just a quick one, Councillor Shaw. I've noticed that the estate strategy report has now been published from Cabinet. I just wondered, is that available to councillors now? And is there any overriding themes in that councillors should be aware of? Thank you.
Yeah, certainly we're always looking at overriding themes and development, and certainly in the future we'll get back in touch with you and develop some of those arguments and debates, okay?
Councillor Rowley.
On Sunday, I went to the King's up at Heath, and they turned the lights on. And then, dare I say, we went into the pub for a drink, and this young woman kept smiling at me, and eventually I sort of said hello to her. And she said, "Do you remember me?" She said, "from 12 years ago when I was involved in the school elections." She said, "I enjoyed it so much that," she said, "I've now progressed, been through university, and I'm actually working for Doncaster Council doing much the same." And she said it had been a really good experience and really enlightening for her, but also the young people she's now working with. And I just wondered if maybe we should have a similar training course here for us, because I have to say that when I attended the Youth Parliament, they were much more civilised than I've seen today.
Yeah, I think that might not be a bad idea, Olivia.
Yeah, it's just to quickly welcome the student elections. I think we've seen the turnout in this district and across the country be extremely low sometimes. So I think anything that we can do to encourage people. I always find that in general, it's children or younger people from disadvantaged backgrounds that don't necessarily know how to vote and know what voting is all about. I see a lot of people from more affluent backgrounds, because they vote, they take the children to vote, and it's sort of a knock-on effect. So I think anything that we can do to help raise awareness of the democratic process and how important it is in this country is fantastic and really welcome it.
Councillor Wilton.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I think, just following on everybody's point, I wanted to get this in at some point, that as Wakefield's youngest ever councillor, there has been, that I've been taking up my point there. I wanted to say it's so important that young people do get involved in politics, and this is the way it starts, and I'm very excited that we're doing this. Thank you, Les.
Any more questions or comments? Salim.
Yeah, I just want to remind members it's Black History Month this month, and just to remember the contribution made by ethnic minority communities, and if we can hold any events around that, that would be brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you for that. It's really important, and as you can see in my report, we're always looking to develop that sort of thing and take it out to the public as well.
If there's no more questions or comments, I'd like to thank Councillor Shaw, and that concludes the Cabinet Members' report. Agenda item 7 is a report which seeks approval of members' allowances for 2024. Is the report moved?
Before we move the report, Madam Mayor, I'd just like to make a statement first on that. Members will recall that at the last council meeting, the leader outlined that we do not feel as though it's the right time for the council members to be taking increases in our basic or special allowances. Given the current climate, I also take that view that it's not the right time that we have pay increases. So therefore, I move the report and recommend the council freeze members' allowances at 2023 rates and do not accept any increases to allowances in 2024.
Is that report seconded?
Yes, thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I'd like to second it and just sort of stress that it is in relation to page 47 of the agenda. I think the inclusion of the 2021 document for background caused a bit of confusion. So it did on my part, so stress it's actually page 47 we're talking about.
Are there any questions in relation to the report?
Yeah, I fully support the fact is there's no increase in allowances. 2014 I got elected. I didn't even know we got an allowance. I was told on the night of the election when I'd won. 2015, 2016, around about that time, myself and Councillor Hughes from the UKIP party objected to the 10% rise that the MPs took, and we took a 10% reduction. So it's been going a long time. I'm pleased that you're bringing it up. I was on the Fire Authority for 2 years, and we had a meeting about pay. We're voting on our pay. That's what we're voting on, which I think, I just still can't believe it. As it turned out, it went through. The deputy chair at that meeting stated, and I'll quote, that the reason that we have to have increases is to get the young people coming through that have good wages and better wages. That's what he stipulated. I can't remember if Councillor Keith was at that meeting, but they all voted for it. And that was the main reason why they voted for it. I, out of the 21, 22 councillors, didn't vote for it. So I'm asking a recorded vote that the councillors that were there will support or go against the proposals, and for the benefit of the younger people coming through, that they see the increases that they can benefit to get these younger people coming through into politics. So I'm asking for a recorded vote on that one. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, I don't understand that. What's Councillor Farmer asking for a recorded vote on? A recorded vote on the fire service? Oh, I'm just...
So what's been moved is option 1 of your report. I've just amended the notes to the Mayor to say that she's going to put option 1 to the vote. So you're asking for a recorded vote on option 1 to freeze. Okay. Is that supported by other councillors?
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. There are a few things I think we should clarify before we go to the vote. First and foremost, we are freezing the basic rate for councillors here, working diligently for their residents. Okay, we are actually having a big decision to make quite a lot of council or officers or staff to be redundant in the coming year. But however, I have not seen any special responsibility rate has been frozen. Correct me if I'm wrong. So are we freeze also those special responsibility? Okay, so the standards, so sorry, we just want to make sure we clarify that the standards is Wakefield currently pay £9,209 for a standard chair. I mean, that has been reduced. But however, we know what happened in the last chair of the Standards Committee. Do they really deserve that amount of money? And finally, maybe Councillor Shaw care to explain this sentence here on page 63. Here it said, only Wakefield paid deputy chairs in West Yorkshire. And then it said, only Hull do not in key cities. What does that mean, please? Thank you.
Councillor Keith.
Yes, thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I did vote to increase our things on the West Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Authority. I took the point that was made there that it does increase the participation for junior members. I do remind people, and want to put this caveat into this, when we freeze anything, anybody can freeze anything. Can you remember that large person from Bradford who came along and said, I'm going to freeze your council tax? And then when we had to unfreeze the council tax or thaw it out, it had to have a major jump. That's the problem with freezing anything. So whilst in that situation, I did agree with the freezing of it. In this situation, I have taken advice and consideration of my colleagues in the party that I represent, and I will be voting to freeze it this time, which is a direct opposition to what I did at the Fire Authority. I have no problem with that. Do you?
Councillor Tully.
Sure, I'm the Deputy Chair of the Fire Authority and got involved in that meeting, but I'll just remind this, and I think it's coming to this report as well, that it's an independent remuneration panel that puts this together. So nobody's voting or not voting for their own, and we've not sat in smoke-filled rooms and decided X, Y, Z, or not X, Y, Z as the case may be. The list of the independent remuneration panel is in this particular document.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've just been discussing the request for a recorded vote, which has been supported by the required number of councillors. However, I'm mindful that nobody has spoken against option 1, which is the option that is proposed. Rather than read out everybody's names, I wonder if it might be appropriate to see whether anybody is against freezing the allowances. If that is the case, if there's nobody against freezing it, then we will list it as a recorded vote that all councillors who are present in the chamber here now voted in favour. So perhaps if we could ask if anybody is against option 1.
I think that's a reasonable request. If Councillor Farmer will do it, I think we'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, I accept that.
Councillor Pickersgill.
Yeah, just at a point of information in regard of Councillor Harvey's remarks, that's actually a 2021 report that's been included for background in terms of different scales, etc. As I said, we're voting today on page 47 and page 47 only. I'm not sure why the background paper is actually in, but it just has caused some confusion.
We take this as carried then, with all councillors in the chamber voting for option 1. Thank you. That is carried. Agenda item 8 is a report which seeks approval for constitutional changes to Article 13. Is the report moved?
Move the report, Madam Chair.
Is the report seconded?
Seconded, Madam Chair.
Are there any questions or comments in relation to the report? All in favour? Any against? Any abstentions?
3 abstentions.
That is carried. Agenda item 9 is a report which seeks approval of the Wakefield Youth Justice Service Annual Strategic Plan. Is the report moved? Is the report seconded?
Seconded, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Are there any questions or comments in relation to the report? Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I just want to remind Councillor to refer to agenda page 131, a very quick question. So I'd just like to ask a bit more details regarding to the Wakefield Youth Justice Service report on the quarterly KPIs, and this is for 2023-2024. The chart on page 131 shows that there are back-to-back failures to meet the target that we set to actually completing the children and family home visits. So could we also, to find some understanding why the next quarter we have hit the target well beyond, and what exactly has happened there, and what is the improvement coming from? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Yes, just a brief comment from myself to congratulate all the hard work that's gone into the turnaround project. I've mentioned this previously at other meetings, but for only one child out of that cohort to go into offending shows what an absolute success the diversion youth justice programme has been. So well done to Margaret and all the team for that superb piece of work.
Any more? If not, all in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you, that is carried. Agenda item 10 is a report on Treasury management activities for the 6 months to the 30th of September 2024. Is the report moved? Is the report seconded?
Seconded, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Are there any questions in relation to the report and comments? Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. So, in contrast to Councillor Graham's upbeat region report early on, some very alarming figures regarding the capital account underspent. Here, initially, last year, we actually said £130 million was budgeted for the year for the capital spend. It was then revised to just short of £115 million. The actual amount at the moment spent by the end of the last 2 quarters was only about 27 million. So if you double that figure for the next 2 quarters, that means that we actually fall dramatically short of the amount of investment the council has set aside for all the projects we have. And for example, your improvements for schools, economic growth, children's service, and adult social care, so on and so forth. So this huge withholding of capital investment in our city has led to a delaying of essential projects, with a failure to get started on many numerous regeneration projects as well. So in the future, given the increasing inflationary pressure we're going to face, and this will undoubtedly lead to so much more higher cost. So not only just the failure to make the vital investment in a timely manner will jeopardize the future of our city, but also bear in mind that the leader of council may have to explain to us why this situation occurred and how we are going to be able to provide the aspiration that the people of Wakefield deserve, and also demonstrate you have the capability to deliver for the people in Wakefield, the hard-working people in Wakefield. They pay the tax. They give you £130 million to spend, and you have not spent maybe less than 40% of that at the moment.
Yeah. It's interesting what you point out, the 130 million, and saying, well, for a start off, when money flows in on capital, I don't know what you know, but it's flowing in allocated to certain projects, and certain projects change. And as we've outlined in a number of different things, some of the projects are put back for all sorts of reasons, and I'm sure you're aware of that. What I would say is two things. One is the fact that people trust us with the 130 million, because this council is prudent, this council spends its money wisely, this council isn't in the same position as some other organisations, right, that were certainly prevalent at spending and being silly under the last 14 years of your government. And we can see where that's led us, with a black hole of £22 billion. And then when you look at this and you can see how well our finances are at the moment and how we're being prudent, I don't think we need to take any lessons from you.
So I don't think that Councillor Shaw need to politicise everything. What I'm saying is, if you are given £130 million to spend on the capital project, on the roads we need to repair, on the school we need to repair, on the care home we need to take care of, rather than what has happened to Hazel Gas, how on earth can you not be able to? So first and foremost, you don't have capacity to deliver. Secondly, you don't have aspiration, you don't know what to do, and you don't know how to get the pressure out of the revenue account. That's why you cannot touch those projects you have. But you keep having the money. You accumulate the money of the taxpayer, but you do not know how to spend it. And that is incompetent to me.
I think I've answered that in great detail, Madam Mayor.
Please show your hands. Any against? Any abstentions? This is carried. Agenda item 11 is a question on notice, details of which are set out in the council agenda. The question received is from Councillor Sharp. Councillor Morley, would you please reply to the question?
Yeah, Madam, I'm not really sure what the question's doing, to be quite truthful. As we've seen, the Outwood Memorial Hall, I also say it's a bit of a landmark for the Wakefield district. You may not know Outwood that well, but you know it's there. Everyone just knows where it is. The history of the hall was, it was funded by the public after the Second World War. It was their memorial to the people that fought in the war, the people in the war, and people made the ultimate sacrifice. There was no council funding involved. It was paid for by the public. They're the ones that paid for it by brick. It's run by a management company that's a voluntary team, so not a company, a voluntary team. We've seen significant housing in that area over the last few years, and obviously there's issues of underpinning, so we're trying to use SIL to obviously support them. Obviously that will be, you know, subject to a business case, but that's where we are.
Council procedure rules entitle the questioner to one supplementary question, but it must arise directly out of the original question posed or the reply given. Councillor Sharp, do you have a supplementary question?
Yeah, thanks for that. No one's disputing what you've just said. My issue is you have made the decision to give money to a business that has the money and is deemed financially suitable to provide that money for the subsidence of the hall themselves. So, do you think, as the portfolio holder, with this injection of SIL money, is well directed given the supposed backdrop of finances that the council is incurring? There are better ways we can divvy out money rather than giving it to someone that already has money. If you asked me for a tenner and I knew you had £1,000 in the bank, I wouldn't lend you a tenner. So how is this any different?
Councillor Morley, you have a right to reply.
I did forget to say it's nice to welcome the Secretary and Chair of the Outwood Memorial Hall to this meeting today. The Outwood Memorial Hall is not a business. It is a charity. It has charitable status. I've been in this chamber for 12 years and I've heard some things over the years. I have never, ever, ever heard a local councillor refusing and questioning and not wanting funding to come into her own ward to support a community asset like the Outwood Memorial Hall. What are we about in this chamber? If we cannot do that to support money coming into our communities, then we should all go home. Pack up and go home. What? I cannot believe what you've done, Councillor
Councillor
Sharp.
Sharp,
You
will
have
you
actually
stop
come here
shouting
and
out,
questioned
please?
funding. It will be part of a business case. We know that. They all knows that. If that is all met, the funding will be there. But who comes in? I cannot believe. Councillor Sharp, quite truthful. You're not fit for purpose. You need to resign. You do not represent that community. You do not represent that ward. I think you're an absolute disgrace.
Thank you. No, you haven't. Sorry. No. No. No, I'm not joking. You have not. You've had your one question. What you were told about. Sorry. End of. The final agenda item is to deal with any motions proposed by members. There are 2 motions to be discussed today. Councillor Farmer, would you please move your motion to council?
Yeah, I'll speak now. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. You know something? I can't stand politics, but there you go. Absolutely unbelievable how people have been cheated throughout the last 6-7 years. I've been a Conservative councillor for, 6 years. So let down by them, so let down. Unfortunately, you're being let down by as well by your Labour Party. And unfortunately, in the future, in the next 17, 18 months, you're going to have to face the music at those local elections. It's not going to be me, because they don't care. They didn't care about me, the Conservative Party, they don't care about you. Opinion polls already suggest that never in the history of a landslide government win has a party become so unpopular so quickly. If another election was held today, Labour would lose 144 seats and have barely enough backsides to form a working coalition with the Lib Dems. And if, of course, if you don't believe me, it's not me, it's the people out there that are now really, really concerned about what's going on. You've let so many people down, the farming communities, the students, the public, well, basically the public. Everybody's been let down so much by what you've done. I'm supportive of the amount of money that's going into the National Health Service. I support that, but I don't want to see it wasted. Over the years, there's been so much money wasted. And of course, if you don't believe me about the polls, you only look at a seat just down the road at Home Valley South. On 2nd of May, you won that by 256 seats. Sorry, 256 votes. And you had a Labour of 45%. On October the 17th, you lost it by 505. Your vote went down 18%. All I've heard from your party is Tory this, Tory that, Tory scum. I get all that. I'm thick-skinned, I get all that. It says, but the hypocrisy that your government and your people have done so far is mind-blowing. I still can't believe the winter fuel allowance. The analysis from your party, 50,000 pensioners are going to be put in fuel poverty. Going to be put in poverty as a result of that decision. Why do something like that? I have no idea why they would do something like that. And of course, the next thing they're arguing about is your MPs are all arguing now because the money that you put back in the money that you put, not the national insurance contribution for the employer, your MPs are now having to pay for that. So your unions are now asking for money to pay your staff. You've shafted everybody and anyone. Who do you think in the care homes, who do you really think in the care homes are going to pay for this? Who do you think is going to pay for it? It's not the private care homes. It's the people at the bottom. The residents that are in there, they're going to have to pay for it. So whether or not you support the motion, you can support it, whatever. But your Chancellor talked about growth. She talked about growth to pay for all these costs. That's what she said. 0.7% in first 3 months in September, 0.5%, then it went down to 0.1%. She said she's not coming back for any more. That's what she said. When he said it yesterday, the day before. She's not coming back for any more. And I don't particularly want it to fail. The thing about it, I want it to be successful, because in the end, if your party's not successful, it's the people out there that are going to suffer. They're the ones that are going to suffer. So you might believe it or believe it or not, I want your party, I want Labour Party to be successful for the simple reason that it affects residents in my ward, all the Wakefield district, it affects them all. So I want you to be successful. I've got my doubts, but I really, really want you to be successful. But your Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, she's made all these, well, I don't know what she's done. But what she has done, she can't even fill a CV in properly, can she? Well, she can't. She can't fill a CV in. So how can we trust her with making major decisions like this? We cannot trust her. She was an economist, Bank of Scotland. She was an economist in the Bank of Scotland for December 2006 to 2009. She was actually a retail banker in Halifax, December 2006 to 2009. She worked at the Bank of England for the best part of a decade. A decade. She actually worked for 6 years, including a 2-year stint, embassy stint. And she knows what it takes to get the British economy back on track. That's what she stated. That's what she stated. But she worked as a very junior Japan analyst. But she's another. I thought it was 25 minutes, Madam Mayor. Is it 5 minutes for me? Is that all it is? It's Christmas. It's Christmas, Madam Mayor. It's Christmas. I've got a lot to say. But what I will do, Madam Mayor, is I will show you respect. It's your first time in charge in that chair. I will show you respect. Just like at the last council meeting, when you came as a deputy chair, I showed you respect there. Not like Councillor Tully up there. You told numerous times to be quiet, didn't you? And he showed no respect to you at all.
You've had your time.
I've had my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is this motion seconded? Thank you, Councillor Ahmed. Do you wish to formally speak now or reserve your right to speak until later in the debate? Thank you. Does any member wish to speak on the motion? May I remind members that speeches must be directed to the question under discussion or to a personal explanation or point of order. No speech may exceed 5 minutes. Councillor Hemingway.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm glad to see Councillor Farmer's found his voice in this chamber in recent months, but I will, of course, be opposing his motion. Yet again, we see the opposition taking a deeply cynical position that conveniently ignores 14 years of Tory mismanagement of the national finances. They dearly like us to forget the inheritance that we received from them in government. Why? Why do they think the new government is having to raise certain taxes 4 months into its term of office? It's because they left Labour a 22 billion black hole, departments overspent, committed to projects they couldn't afford. Organisations such as the OBR and IFS have backed Labour's figures, and the International Monetary Fund, not always a friend of Labour governments in years past, has said it supports the Chancellor's measures for sustainably raising revenue. According to the Director of the IFS, Paul Johnson, Rachel Reeves is not wrong to stress she received a hospital pass from the last government. But don't just take the word of experts on the economy for it. What about a Tory politician, a former Chancellor of the Exchequer, Kwasi Kwarteng? Now, I know there have been a lot of Tory Chancellors in recent years, I think 7 in the last term of office, so it's hard to keep track of them all. He's the one that crashed the economy with Liz Truss's mini-budget. But this is what he had to say less than a month ago. We Tories have to be honest. Rachel Reeves is cleaning up our mess. As clear as day, it's a confession as to why tough decisions are now necessary by the new government. No government wants to raise taxes, but the cheek of the Conservatives sat here criticising tax rises when their government saw taxes hit record highs. Come on, show some integrity and consistency. We're fixing the mess that you lot left behind you. Taxes of any kind are never easy decisions, but smaller businesses are being protected where possible. The employment allowance for small businesses is being more than doubled from 5,000 to 10,500. Big businesses like Tesco, Sainsbury's, Next, Amazon, Boots, they may cry foul in the press, but they can afford to take a dint in their multi-billion profits if it's to help fix the country. Let's not forget that the government has already capped corporation tax at 25%, the lowest in the G7, and has committed to introduce permanently lower taxes for retail, hospitality and leisure. But we've also got not to lose sight in this debate of where the money raised by these tax increases is going. The government will use the funding to put billions into the NHS and public services, which under the Tories were allowed to wither and crumble, starved of needed cash, or worse, deliberately slashed and burned under an austerity programme. This tax increase enables the government to fix the foundations and put the biggest increase in NHS funding in for many years. Let's use it to get waiting lists down. Let's use it to improve patient care. Let's use it to restore pride and confidence in a health service that the Tories took to record lows. Not everyone will agree with that, or tax rises to fund it. But for those on waiting lists crying out for treatment, I'm sure this will be welcome news. Mr. Mayor, Madam Mayor, I oppose the Conservative motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I actually didn't intend to contribute to this debate because I just felt as though it were a bit of a let's pick on Councillor Tully Day. But I'm like Councillor Farmer, I've been around a long time and I'm pretty thick-skinned. But he just saying, I wish he'd have stuck to his, because often I've been stopped in this chamber for not dealing with the motion in question, and we've gone round the houses, we've looked at Rachel Reeves' CV and you name it. But it isn't an unpopular budget, or depending which paper you read. Because it isn't an unpopular budget for people who've seen an increase in the living wage. And it isn't an unpopular budget for 18 to 20-year-olds that's had an increase in the wages. And if we're going to begrudge people 18 and 20 a decent standard of living, well, we need to take a long, hard look at mirror. Because at 20 years of age, whether I like it or not, I've got 2 kids and a mortgage. And we're making my own weight world. And so, we've watched, and all I've heard since the budget is people making issues about we can't afford this and we can't afford that. But it's big business. Tesco's, KFC, all the big major corporations, swimming in money. £1.2 billion Tesco's made last year. They can't even afford, they won't even pay the workers a proper sick pay scheme. And they're crying in the beer about we can't afford a rise and we can't afford to take this rise. Because you know what? They use our NHS as well. They use our roads. They use our services. But nobody can tell you that's got an opposition to this rise as to where money's coming from. And I see we talk about the Institute of General Practice, and I get that, and care homes. I've got a relation that's living in a care home. They're charging them £1,200 a week. £5,000 a month is 96. They don't eat a tin of beans a week. What they're spending £1,200 on? Now, when I was a kid, there were no cars in my village, only horse and carts. And only bloke that got a car, what doctor when he come to our house, and he got a Rolls Royce. And they're the same people who've been subsidised and looked after to improve the practices. And don't set me off on farmers. For God's sake, let's not go down the route on farmers. And I just find there is a choice. We either look at better services for people that we represent in this part of the world, or we do not, because nobody is going to tell us where the money is going to come from. Because I tell you what the Tories' money were coming from. They were taking money away from working poor people, like they did with bedroom tax, like they did with other in-work benefits. And that's where they were taking their money from. And nobody wants to discuss the situation about what's happening going forward regarding our public services. The money's got to be found, and we had it 20 years since when our Labour government introduced a national minimum wage. And we all remember the outcry. It'll cost millions of jobs, we can't afford this. They always come with the same one. While they're all swanning around in the Ferraris and the posh cars while they're treating the people with what they can get away with. It is time. It's called distribution of wealth, and it's been a long time coming, and I'm glad this Labour government has put some clear water between what we stand for and what the Tories stood for, and that's the reason why we need to oppose this motion, and we will continue to fight for the people in this district for better services, and I would urge everyone in this council chamber today to oppose the ridiculous motion that's been put down by Councillor Farmer.
Councillor Pickers-Gill.
Yeah, quite briefly, Madam Deputy Mayor, just to say, in opposing the motion, I find it remarkable that the Conservative Party that had Michael Green, Grant Shapps, as one of its leading figures is complaining about a sort of like a single line on someone's CV. I find the cheek of that absolutely amazing. I think we need to look at some of the facts. Certainly the increase in the employer allowance is a massive boost to a lot of small businesses. I was talking to a friend of mine who owns a business with himself, his brother and one employee. He reckons they're about £3,000 a year better off as a result of that changes. A lot of sort of shops and other small businesses in our community will actually benefit and are not being scared. You hear a lot of these business complaints about their increased costs arising from the budget, but they keep running together two things, which is the employers' NI changes and the increase in national living wage. And I have to say, and Councillor Tully's stolen my thunder here, I'm old enough to remember 1996 and 1997 and all the complaints about how the introduction of a national minimum wage was going to ruin the economy. And we saw what it did. It did what people actually predicted, which was increase employment, increase living standards, and we got away from people having to work for sort of £3 and £4 an hour, which was the case then. So I think the increase in the national living wage that we're seeing is going to increase spending in our district. So I think there is a lot of positivity in the budget, and as also say, it's about tackling long-term problems. So I'd suggest that people oppose this motion.
Councillor Ahmed, you reserved your right to speak until later in the debate. Would you like to speak now?
The positivity is probably just shared by you, that on its own. So in terms of the motion, obviously the motion's quite clear, and I think the pre-written comments will show that there's not many of us here in the council chamber that actually employ people, is there? But I think Councillor Harvey is one of them. And the people that you actually speak to are outside the big businesses that Councillor Tully talks about. And all them people are the ones that are going to be paying the cost of that. They're going to be deciding whether to employ that extra person, whether they're willing to make them costs in the business. And they're all people. I was speaking to someone who lives in rural ward, financial advisor, who was due to take on 2 more staff, considering whether that works out, obviously downturn in the mortgage market as well. People in Wakefield city centre, the small businesses will be paying this, are the ones that will be paying that. And there's not much positivity going on there unless we're talking rubbish. Go and speak to them because they're in your ward. So the reality is that those people, the small businesses, the people who've scraped hard, paid their taxes every year, probably making ends meet from the first 2 or 3 years, not realising that there'll be zero in each time. When people set up businesses, they realise that the zero, most of them don't make anything for the first 2 or 3 years. They're not getting free money from their union mates and, getting jobs that, they can chill out and relax and get, time. They're spending 7, 8 hour, 8 hour, 9 hour, 10 hour days. People who are pharmacists, I was speaking to pharmacists saying, I said, you only work 5 days. Because no, the paperwork and the orderings are on Saturday and Sunday. All these people. And then it comes back to what you should have said is, if Rachel Reeves actually stood up and said, you know what, we don't know what's going on with this economy. The Tories have left such a mess. We've got no idea what's happening. Although apparently they'd seen the books. You should have said at that point, we have got no idea how bad this mess is going to be. So we're going to tell the people beforehand that we reserve our right, that we might have to put taxes up. We might have to do these things. We might have to increase national insurance contributions. We might have to increase tax on students, etc. That would have been an honourable thing to do. And we can go back 20 years. I could start counting. Let's go back 20 years. Let's ask the Iraqi people how bright their lives are, because of the Labour government. So don't chat rubbish and come in here, go back 20 years, 1997, this happened and that happened. The reality is that everybody in the Labour Party, particularly Rachel Reeves, with their experience of being in the Bank of England, knew exactly what the mess was, if there was one. And the £22 billion backhoe, he knows the OBR's broken it down, I ain't written anything. It says there that most of them costs were to meet the demands of the wage increases that were in place. That's what it was. They would meet the demands of the wage increases. So the reality was, if the Labour Party had come forward and said, we don't know how bad the situation is, for this reason, we're not going to make any commitments on wage rises or anything. You know, we're not going to make a commitment on, you know, saying to students, you're going to be better off under Labour. Well, you know you're not. You've just had an increase. We're going to say to people in businesses, don't worry, the business burden is going to decrease, then increase tax on them. The reality was the Labour Party knew exactly what it was getting itself into, lied and hooked into the public, and said what said very little or not enough, especially for people who are supposed to be specialists in the Bank of England. So they came forward, and this cost implications is not about Amazon and then big companies. It's the mass majority of companies that are just on the edge of surviving that it's going to cost them, and it's going to cost their budgets, and they're going to lay staff off, and them staff, and they're going to cost the government to pay out, and their families are going to sit on Christmas, this Christmas or next Christmas, not knowing if they've got a livelihood.
Councillor Farmer, you have the right to reply if you wish. But may I remind you, in exercising your right of reply, that no new matter can be introduced. And it's 5 minutes, so don't waste your time.
Yeah, as I've stated before, I said, I really, really hope you're going to be a success. I really hope you're going to be a success. But we'll see, we'll see. 0.1% growth for the last 3 months. No percentage growth in September. Good luck to all of you. I hope you succeed. I hope Rachel succeeds, but I've got a funny feeling. I'll make a prediction. Economists can make predictions, can't they? So I'll make one, they're always wrong. So I predict we're going to be in recession by the time it comes round, May 2026, when all of you lot are up for election. All of you. Oh yes, me, yeah. And I might be with the Reform Party. I may be with you. I may be with the Monster Raving Loony Party. I may be whatever. I may not even stand. Because politics is completely and utterly toxic, full of backstabbing people who lie. And the hypocrisy is absolutely unbelievable. There's one person out of your party, your MPs, I've put in the trench with me. That's John Trickett. The rest of them are cowards with no spine whatsoever.
Can I remind you, Councillor Farmer?
Is it 5 minutes?
No, you're introducing new matters.
I mean, no, I didn't. So, you've missed, could you stop the clock? You've misled me there. So basically, I forgot you've lost my train of thought, Madam Mayor. I haven't finished. Wait, I'll get it back in a minute. Stop the clock then, Madam Mayor. But I will show you respect. I've lost my train of thought now. She's put me off, hasn't she? I'll leave it at that. Just one thing I will bring up. Councillor Hemingway brought up the fact is, and Councillor Ahmed brought it up. Talk about bad decisions. Your government, under the Labour government, illegally invaded Iraq, killed thousands of innocent Iraqis.
1.2 million.
No, you've done well there. No. We will now move to the vote. Please show all those in favour of the motion. All those against? Any abstentions? The motion is defeated. Councillor Ahmed, would you please move your motion to council?
Move the motion because the changes that are being made negate the original motion, so I won't be moving it.
So you're withdrawing it?
Have you withdrawing it? Fine. So, sorry? No. So, That brings us to the end of today's council business. I'd like to thank you all for your attendance, and seeing as though we haven't... yes, don't forget to come and get your piece of fruit and vegetable, but I'd like to wish you all a very peaceful and joyous Christmas. Thank you.